Maya Chen stood in front of the small mirror in her tiny apartment bathroom, brushing her long black hair and thinking about the day ahead. She was 22 years old and had just finished art school 3 months ago. Every morning felt the same now. She would wake up, get dressed in her coffee shop uniform, and spend 8 hours making lattes and serving pastries to college students and local workers. The small college town where Maya lived was quiet and peaceful. Most people knew each other, and nothing exciting ever happened. Maya had grown up in a big city, but she came to this town for art school because it was cheaper and the professors were good. Now that she had graduated, she was not sure what to do next. She had applied for jobs in bigger cities, but no one had called her back yet. Maya worked at a coffee shop called Sunrise Cafe. It was a cozy place with wooden tables, soft music, and walls covered with artwork from local artists. The owner, Mrs. Peterson, was a kind woman in her 50s who treated Maya like a daughter. Maya liked working there, but she knew it was not her dream job. She wanted to be a real artist, to have her paintings in galleries and museums. Every night after work, Maya would go home to her small apartment above the bakery on Main Street. The apartment was not much to look at. It had one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living room that she had turned into her art studio. Canvas paintings covered every wall, and brushes and paint tubes were scattered across a wooden desk by the window. This was where Maya felt most alive, where she could forget about serving coffee and dream about her future as an artist. Maya had been thinking about getting a tattoo for months. Many of her friends from art school had tattoos, and she always admired how confident and artistic they looked. She had grown up in a traditional family where tattoos were not accepted, but now she was living on her own and could make her own choices. She wanted something that would represent her love for art and her new independence. One evening in late September, Maya was walking home from work when she noticed a small tattoo shop she had never seen before. The sign said Ink Dreams in simple black letters, and through the window, she could see colorful drawings on the walls. Maya had walked this street hundreds of times, but somehow she had never noticed this place before. Curiosity got the better of her, and she decided to go inside. The shop was small and clean, with comfortable chairs and soft rock music playing in the background. The walls were covered with hundreds of tattoo designs, from simple flowers to complex dragons. Behind the counter sat a man in his 30s with short brown hair and arms covered in tattoos. He looked up from the magazine he was reading and smiled at Maya. The man introduced himself as Jake. He had a friendly face and a calm voice that made Maya feel comfortable. Jake told her he had opened the shop just 2 months ago, after working in bigger cities for several years. He said he liked the quiet town and wanted to bring quality tattoo art to people who did not want to travel far for good work. Maya told Jake she was thinking about getting her first tattoo, but she was not sure what design she wanted. Jake was patient and asked her many questions. What kind of art did she like? What was important to her? Did she want something big or small, visible or hidden? Maya explained that she was an artist and wanted something that looked artistic and meaningful but not too obvious or common. Jake showed Maya through several books of designs. There were roses, butterflies, words in different languages, and geometric patterns. Maya looked at hundreds of pictures, but nothing felt right. She was starting to think maybe she was not ready for a tattoo after all. Then Jake pulled out a special portfolio from behind the counter. He said these were his original designs, tattoos that he had created himself and never given to anyone else. Maya opened the book and immediately fell in love with a design on the 3rd page. The tattoo was beautiful and mysterious. It had flowing lines that curved and twisted like water or wind. Inside these lines were symbols that looked ancient and important, but Maya could not tell what they meant. The whole design was about the size of her hand, with intricate details. That showed Jake was a very skilled artist. Maya asked Jake about the design. He told her he had created it by combining different elements he found interesting. The flowing lines were inspired by traditional Asian art, which reminded Maya of her own heritage. The symbols, Jake explained, were inspired by old military designs and traditional markings, but he had changed them and made them more artistic and decorative. Jake said he had designed this tattoo months ago but was waiting for the right person to appreciate it. He told Maya that the symbols did not have any specific meaning anymore, Since he had modified them so much, they were just meant to look mysterious and beautiful, like ancient art that people might find in museums. Maya stared at the design for a long time. Something about it spoke to her artistic soul. It was exactly what she had been looking for. Something that looked meaningful and sophisticated, without being too obvious. The design had an elegance that reminded her of the paintings she loved most, the ones that made people stop and wonder about their deeper meaning. Jake suggested that Maya take some time to think about it. Getting a tattoo was a big decision, especially a first one. But Maya had already made up her mind. She knew this was the design she wanted. It felt like fate that she had walked into this shop and found this exact tattoo waiting for her. They discussed where to place the tattoo. Maya wanted it somewhere she could show when she wanted to, but also hide when necessary for job interviews or family visits. Jake suggested her left shoulder blade. It would be easy to cover with most clothing, but visible in summer tops or dresses with open backs. Maya scheduled her appointment for the following Saturday. She was excited and nervous at the same time. This would be her first tattoo, her first real act of independence as an adult. She had no idea that the beautiful symbols Jake had modified and called decorative were actually based on real military insignia from a classified unit that had operated decades ago. As Maya walked home that evening, she felt different already. She was finally doing something just for herself, something that would mark this new chapter in her life as an independent artist and adult. 3 years had passed since Maya got her tattoo. She had almost forgotten about that Saturday afternoon, when Jake had carefully drawn the mysterious symbols on her shoulder blade. Life had changed completely for her. She no longer lived in the small college town or worked at Sunrise Cafe. After months of job hunting, she finally got hired by a marketing company in the big city. Maya now worked at Thompson Marketing Group, a successful firm that created advertisements for restaurants, clothing stores, and small businesses. Her job was to design graphics and help create visual campaigns that would catch people's attention. It was not exactly the art career she had dreamed of, but it paid well and used her creative skills. She had her own small apartment in the city and was slowly building the independent life she had always wanted. The tattoo on her shoulder blade had become just a normal part of her body. Sometimes she forgot it was even there. When she wore summer dresses or went swimming, people would occasionally compliment the design and ask where she got it. Maya would tell them about Jake's shop in the college town, though she had heard from friends that he had closed the business and moved away about a year ago. Maya had made some good friends at work, and they often invited her to company events and parties. She was naturally shy, but working in marketing had helped her become more comfortable talking to new people and attending social gatherings. Her boss, Mr. Thompson, often said she was one of their most promising young employees. In early November, Mr. Thompson announced that the company would be hosting its annual charity gala. This was a big event where Thompson Marketing Group raised money for local children's hospitals. Many important people from the business community would attend, along with city officials and even some military leaders who supported the charity. All employees were expected to attend and help make the event successful. Maya had never been to such a fancy event before. She spent weeks looking for the perfect dress and finally found an elegant black evening gown that fit her budget. The dress had a classic design with a high neckline in front, but the back was completely open, showing her shoulder blades and upper back. When Maya tried it on, she realized her tattoo would be clearly visible, but she thought it looked sophisticated and artistic with the formal dress. The gala was held at the Grand Plaza Hotel, the most expensive hotel in the city. Maya had only seen this place from the outside before. The ballroom was decorated with golden lights, white flowers, and round tables covered with crisp white tablecloths. Men wore dark suits or military uniforms, and women wore colorful evening gowns and sparkling jewelry. Maya felt nervous but excited to be part of such an elegant event. Maya arrived at 7 in the evening and immediately looked for her co-workers. She found them near the bar, chatting and laughing while soft classical music played in the background. Her friend Jessica complimented her dress and said the open back looked very stylish. Maya felt confident and relaxed as she joined the conversation. The evening started with cocktails and appetizers. Maya tried foods she had never tasted before, like caviar and fancy cheese. She talked with clients and other marketing professionals about upcoming projects and industry trends. Everyone seemed friendly and interested in her work. Maya was having a wonderful time and felt proud to represent her company at such an important event. Around 8:30, Maya walked over to the refreshment table to get some water. She was standing with her back to the room, reaching for a glass, when she suddenly felt like someone was staring at her. Maya had experienced this feeling before, the strange sensation that eyes were watching her closely. She turned around slowly and scanned the crowd. Near the entrance to the ballroom stood an older man in a military uniform. He appeared to be in his 60s with gray hair and a strong, serious face. His uniform was dark blue with many colorful medals and ribbons on his chest. But what caught Maya's attention was not his impressive appearance. It was the way he was looking at her. His eyes were focused directly on her, and his expression showed something between surprise and recognition. Maya felt confused and slightly uncomfortable. She had never seen this man before in her life. She was certain of that. So why was he staring at her like he knew her? Maybe he was just admiring her dress, or perhaps he was waiting to talk to someone standing near her. Maya tried to ignore the feeling and continued talking with her colleagues, but every few minutes Maya would glance back toward the military man, and he was still watching her. He had moved to different spots around the room, but his attention remained on her. Maya began to feel nervous. Was there something wrong with her dress? Did she have food on her face? She quietly asked Jessica if everything looked okay, but Jessica said she looked perfect. Finally, the man began walking directly toward Maya. His steps were slow and deliberate, like he was thinking carefully about what he was going to do. Maya watched him approach and noticed that other people seemed to respect him. Several guests nodded politely as he passed, and a few even stepped aside to give him more room. When the man reached Maya, he did not smile or introduce himself right away. Instead, he stood close to her and spoke in a quiet, serious voice. He asked, "Excuse me, miss, but may I ask where you got that tattoo?" His words were polite, but something in his tone made Maya feel like this was not just casual small talk. Maya turned slightly so the man could see her shoulder blade more clearly. She explained that she had gotten the tattoo about 3 years ago from an artist named Jake, who had a small shop in her college town. She said Jake had told her the design was artistic and decorative, inspired by military themes but not copied from anything specific. Maya tried to keep her voice light and friendly, but she could not shake the feeling that something serious was happening. The man listened carefully to every word Maya said. His face remained stern and he did not seem satisfied with her explanation. When she finished talking, he paused for a long moment, looking directly into her eyes. Then he extended his hand in a formal handshake and said, "Young lady, I am General Robert Martinez of the United States Army. That tattoo you are wearing is not just decoration. Those symbols represent something very specific and very few people should know about them." Maya felt her heart start beating faster. She shook the general's hand, but her mind was racing with questions and worry. What did he mean the symbols were specific? Jake had told her they were just artistic designs. How could a tattoo she got from a small-town artist be connected to military secrets? And why did this general look so serious and concerned? General Martinez glanced around the busy ballroom and then looked back at Maya. "I think we need to have a private conversation about this," he said quietly. "Would you be willing to step aside with me for a few minutes? I believe there are some things you need to know about what you are wearing on your back." Maya followed General Martinez through the crowded ballroom, her heart pounding with each step. She tried to stay calm, but her mind was filled with worried thoughts. What could be so important about her tattoo that a military general wanted to speak with her privately? She had always thought it was just a beautiful piece of art that Jake had created for her. General Martinez led her to a quiet corner of the hotel lobby, away from the noise and music of the gala. There were 2 comfortable leather chairs near a large window that looked out onto the city lights. The general gestured for Maya to sit down, and he took the chair across from her. Even though he was trying to be polite, Maya could see the serious concern in his eyes. The general looked around to make sure no one else was listening, then leaned forward slightly. "Miss Chen," he said, using her name even though she had not told him what it was. "Before we continue, I need to ask you a few questions. Have you ever served in the military or worked for any government agency?" Maya shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I graduated from art school 3 years ago and work at a marketing company. I have never had any connection to the military or government." Her voice was slightly shaky because she was nervous and confused. General Martinez nodded slowly. "And you said you got this tattoo from an artist named Jake in a college town. Can you tell me exactly what he told you about the design? Try to remember his exact words if possible." Maya thought back to that day 3 years ago when she had first seen the tattoo design in Jake's portfolio. "Jake told me he had created the design himself by combining different elements. He said the flowing lines were inspired by traditional Asian art, and the symbols were based on old military designs, but he had changed them to make them more artistic and decorative." The general's expression became even more serious. "Miss Chen, I need to show you something, but first I want to explain why this conversation is necessary." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small leather wallet. "What I am about to tell you is not classified information anymore, but it involves military history that most people do not know about." Maya waited quietly, feeling more worried with each passing moment. She wondered if she had accidentally done something illegal by getting her tattoo. Maybe Jake had copied real military symbols without permission, and now she was in trouble for wearing them. General Martinez opened his wallet and carefully removed a small old photograph. The picture was in color but faded, like it had been taken many years ago. "Miss Chen, the symbols on your back are not just inspired by military designs. They are almost exactly the same as the unit insignia of a special operations group called Task Force Phoenix." Maya looked at the photograph the general handed her. It showed several soldiers in military uniforms standing together in what looked like a jungle setting. In the center of the photo was a flag with symbols that made Maya's stomach drop. The design on the flag was almost identical to her tattoo. Task Force Phoenix operated in Vietnam and Cambodia during the 1970s, General Martinez continued. It was a highly classified unit that conducted secret missions behind enemy lines. The operations were so sensitive that even today, many details about the unit remain classified. Only members of Task Force Phoenix and certain high-ranking military officials were ever supposed to know the exact design of these symbols. Maya stared at the photograph, comparing it to what she remembered of her own tattoo. The similarities were impossible to ignore. The flowing lines were the same, and the symbols in the center were nearly identical. The only differences were small artistic changes that Jake had made. "I do not understand," Maya said quietly. "Jake told me he had created this design himself. He said it was just decorative art. How could he have known about classified military symbols?" General Martinez took back the photograph and looked at Maya with a mixture of concern and curiosity. "That is exactly what we need to find out. Miss Chen, displaying classified military insignia without proper authorization can be a serious federal offense depending on the circumstances and intent." Maya felt panic rising in her chest. "But I did not know. I never meant to copy any real military symbols. I just thought it was a beautiful design that Jake had created. I would never intentionally do anything disrespectful to the military." The general raised his hand to calm her down. "I believe you, Miss Chen. Your reaction tells me that this was not intentional on your part. You are clearly not someone who has had access to classified military information. But this situation raises important questions about how your tattoo artist obtained images or information about Task Force Phoenix." Maya tried to think of any explanation. Maybe Jake saw the symbols somewhere online or in a book about military history. He seemed to know a lot about different types of art and design. General Martinez shook his head. "That is very unlikely. The insignia of Task Force Phoenix were never published in any books or websites. The unit's existence was not even officially acknowledged until just a few years ago, and the specific design of their symbols has never been made public." The general paused and studied Maya's face carefully. "Miss Chen, I need you to think very carefully about everything Jake told you, about himself and about this tattoo. Did he ever mention serving in the military? Did he talk about his family or his background? Any detail might be important. Maya closed her eyes and tried to remember her conversations with Jake. He said he had worked in bigger cities before, opening his shop in the college town. He seemed to know a lot about art and different tattoo styles. He was very professional and friendly, but he did not talk much about his personal life. Did he ever mention his father or any family members who might have served in the military? General Martinez asked. Maya thought harder, trying to recall every detail of her interactions with Jake. I think he mentioned once that his father had died when he was young, but I do not remember him saying anything about military service. We mostly talked about art and tattoo designs. General Martinez nodded and made some notes in a small notebook he had pulled from his pocket. Miss Chen, I am going to need the full name of the tattoo shop and its exact location. I will also need any other information you can remember about this Jake person. This is not your fault, but we need to investigate how classified military symbols ended up in a civilian tattoo shop. Maya provided all the information she could remember about Ink Dreams and Jake. She told the general about the shop's location on Main Street, what Jake looked like, and when she had gotten her tattoo. She also mentioned that she had heard from friends that Jake had closed his shop and moved away about a year ago. What happens to me now? Maya asked nervously. Am I in legal trouble for having this tattoo? General Martinez looked at her with a more gentle expression. Miss Chen, based on our conversation, I believe you are an innocent victim in this situation. However, we will need to conduct a full investigation before we can determine the best course of action. In the meantime, I would advise you to be careful about displaying your tattoo in public, especially around military personnel or government facilities. Maya felt overwhelmed by everything she had learned. Her simple decorative tattoo had turned into a connection to classified military operations and potential federal crimes. She wondered what would happen to Jake when the military found him, and whether she would need to get her tattoo removed or face legal consequences. General Martinez stood up and handed Maya his business card. Miss Chen, someone from our office will contact you within the next few days to continue this investigation. Please do not discuss this conversation with anyone until we have completed our inquiry. And remember, you have done nothing wrong. We just need to understand how this situation occurred. As Maya walked back toward the gala, she felt like her entire world had changed in just 30 minutes. The beautiful tattoo she had worn proudly for 3 years was now a source of worry and confusion. She wondered what secrets Jake had been hiding and whether her innocent decision to get a tattoo would have serious consequences for both of them. 1 week after the charity gala, Maya was sitting at her desk at Thompson Marketing Group when her phone rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number with a government area code. Maya's heart started beating faster as she remembered General Martinez's promise that someone would contact her about the investigation. The voice on the phone belonged to Agent Sarah Collins from the Department of Defense Criminal Investigation Division. Agent Collins spoke in a professional but friendly tone, asking Maya if she could meet that afternoon to discuss the findings of their investigation into her tattoo. Maya agreed, even though she felt nervous about what they might have discovered. Maya met Agent Collins at a small coffee shop downtown, far from her workplace in the busy areas of the city. Agent Collins was a woman in her 40s with short blonde hair and a serious but kind face. She wore a simple business suit and carried a leather briefcase that looked official and important. Agent Collins ordered coffee for both of them and then opened her briefcase. She pulled out a thick folder filled with papers and photographs. Miss Chen, she began, our investigation has uncovered some very interesting information about your tattoo artist, Jake Morrison. Maya was surprised to hear Jake's last name. She realized that in all their conversations 3 years ago, he had never told her his full name. She had simply known him as Jake from the tattoo shop. Agent Collins continued, Jake Morrison is 35 years old and has been working as a tattoo artist for about 12 years. He moved around to different cities quite often, never staying in one place for more than 2 or 3 years. But the most important thing we discovered is his family history. The agent showed Maya a military record from the 1970s. The document had an official seal and was marked with various stamps and signatures. Jake's father was Sergeant First Class David Morrison, United States Army. He served with Task Force Phoenix during the Vietnam War. Maya felt her stomach drop as she realized what this meant. Jake had not randomly created the symbols on her tattoo. He had copied them from his father's military service. But Agent Collins had more shocking news to share. Sergeant David Morrison was killed in action in Cambodia in 1971. Agent Collins said gently. Jake was only 5 years old when his father died. According to military records and family interviews, Jake grew up knowing very little about his father's service. His mother remarried when he was 8, and his stepfather did not talk much about David Morrison's military career. Agent Collins showed Maya several more documents from the investigation. For most of his adult life, Jake tried to learn more about his father and what had happened to him during the war. But because Task Force Phoenix was classified, the military could not provide him with detailed information. Official records only said that his father died serving his country in Southeast Asia. Maya began to understand why Jake had been so secretive about the tattoo design. He was not trying to commit a crime or disrespect the military. He was trying to connect with the father he had barely known. About 4 years ago, Agent Collins continued, Jake made contact with other family members of Task Force Phoenix veterans through online military family support groups. Some of these families had kept unofficial photographs and documents from their loved ones who served in the unit. Through these connections, Jake was able to obtain copies of materials that showed his father's unit insignia. Agent Collins showed Maya a photograph that looked similar to the one General Martinez had shown her at the hotel. This picture showed several young soldiers in jungle fatigues, including a man who looked like he could have been Jake's father. In the background was the Task Force Phoenix flag, with the symbols that Maya now wore on her back. Jake kept these materials private for years, Agent Collins explained. He treasured them as his only real connection to his father's military service. According to people who knew him, Jake would sometimes talk about wanting to honor his father's memory somehow, but he was not sure how to do it legally since the information was still classified. Maya felt sad thinking about Jake growing up without knowing his father and spending years searching for answers about his military service. She could understand why he would want to keep some connection to his father's memory, even if it meant bending the rules. Agent Collins opened another section of the file. When Jake opened his tattoo shop in your college town, he decided to create a modified version of his father's unit insignia as a tattoo design. He changed some of the details to make it more artistic and decorative, thinking that no one would recognize the original symbols. He planned to offer this design to someone special, someone who would appreciate its beauty without knowing its true military significance. But why did he choose me? Maya asked. I was just a regular customer who wanted her first tattoo. Agent Collins smiled slightly. According to Jake, when you came into his shop that day, you reminded him of his father's stories about the local people his unit had worked with in Southeast Asia. Your interest in art and your respectful attitude made him feel like you would treat the design with care and appreciation. Maya felt mixed emotions hearing this explanation. She was touched that Jake had chosen her for such a personal and meaningful design, but she also felt guilty that she had unknowingly carried symbols of his father's classified military service for 3 years. What happens to Jake now? Maya asked with concern. Is he in serious trouble for using classified military symbols? Agent Collins closed the file and looked at Maya seriously. That decision has not been made yet. Jake's actions were technically unauthorized, but the circumstances are very unusual. His father died serving his country, and Jake spent most of his life trying to learn about that service. The military understands his emotional motivations, even if they cannot officially approve of his methods. Agent Collins explained that Jake had been contacted by military investigators and was cooperating fully with the investigation. He had provided all the unofficial documents and photographs he had obtained about Task Force Phoenix, and he had expressed genuine regret for any problems his actions had caused. The final decision about Jake's case will come from higher-ranking military officials, Agent Collins said. But I can tell you that General Martinez has been working to find a solution that acknowledges both the seriousness of using classified symbols and the understandable desire of a son to honor his fallen father. Maya left the coffee shop feeling more confused than ever. She understood Jake's motivations and felt sorry for his lifelong search for information about his father. But she also worried about what would happen to both of them as the investigation continued. Her tattoo had become the center of a complex situation involving military secrets, family history, and questions about how to properly honor fallen soldiers. That evening, Maya stood in front of her bathroom mirror, looking at her tattoo in the reflection. The symbols that had once seemed like simple decorative art now carried the weight of a father's sacrifice and a son's love. She wondered if she would be allowed to keep the tattoo, or if she would be required to have it removed or changed. Most of all, she hoped that Jake would not face serious legal consequences for his attempt to connect with his father's memory. 2 months after Maya's meeting with Agent Collins, she received another phone call that would change her life completely. This time, the call came directly from General Martinez himself. His voice sounded different than before, warmer and more hopeful instead of stern and concerned. "Miss Chen," General Martinez said, "I have some very good news to share with you. We have found a solution to your situation that I believe will make everyone happy, including Jake Morrison and the families of Task Force Phoenix veterans." Maya felt a wave of relief wash over her. For weeks, she had been worried about what would happen to her and to Jake. She had barely slept some nights, thinking about possible legal consequences and wondering if she would lose her job or face criminal charges. The stress had affected her work performance, and her friends had noticed that she seemed anxious and distracted. General Martinez asked Maya to meet him at the Veterans Affairs office downtown the following Saturday morning. He said there were some people he wanted her to meet and a proposal he wanted to discuss with her. Maya agreed immediately, eager to finally resolve the situation that had been hanging over her head for months. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray, but Maya felt optimistic for the first time since the charity gala. She dressed carefully in a conservative business outfit and arrived at the Veterans Affairs office 15 minutes early. The building was older and formal, with marble floors and walls covered with photographs of military ceremonies and memorials. General Martinez met Maya in the lobby and led her to a conference room on the second floor. Inside the room were several other people Maya had never seen before. There were 3 older men who appeared to be military veterans, a woman in her 50s wearing a business suit, and to Maya's surprise, Jake Morrison himself. Jake looked older than Maya remembered, with more gray in his hair and lines around his eyes that suggested he had been through a difficult time. When he saw Maya, he stood up and walked over to her with an expression of relief and gratitude. "Maya," Jake said quietly, "I am so sorry for what I put you through. I never meant for you to get involved in any of this. I just wanted to create something beautiful that honored my father's memory." Maya could see the pain in Jake's eyes and felt genuine sympathy for him. "I understand why you did it," she said. "I just wish you had told me the truth about the symbols. I would have been honored to carry something that connected to your father's service." General Martinez called everyone to sit around the conference table. He introduced the other people in the room as surviving members of Task Force Phoenix and their family representatives. The woman in the business suit was introduced as Margaret Foster, director of the Veterans Memorial Foundation. "For the past 2 months," General Martinez began, "we have been working on a special project that will solve multiple problems at once. The surviving members of Task Force Phoenix have been trying for years to find an appropriate way to honor their fallen comrades, including Sergeant David Morrison. The classified nature of their operations made it difficult to create any public memorials or recognition." Margaret Foster opened a folder and spread several documents and drawings across the table. "We are proposing to create an official memorial for Task Force Phoenix that will be displayed at the National Veterans Memorial Park in Washington, D.C. This memorial will honor all the men who served in the unit, including those who made the ultimate sacrifice." Maya looked at the drawings and saw that they showed a bronze plaque with symbols that looked very similar to her tattoo. The design had been refined and modified slightly, but the basic elements were the same flowing lines and meaningful symbols that Jake had created. General Martinez explained the proposal in detail. "Miss Chen, instead of requiring you to remove or alter your tattoo, we would like you to become part of this memorial project. Your tattoo with some minor official modifications supervised by military historians, would become the basis for the design of the memorial plaque. One of the Task Force Phoenix veterans, an elderly man named Colonel James Wright, spoke up. "Miss Chen, we have all agreed that your tattoo represents something beautiful about how military service and sacrifice can touch people in unexpected ways. Instead of seeing it as a problem, we want to see it as an opportunity to finally give our unit the recognition it deserves." Jake was invited to participate in the project as well. He would work with the memorial designers to ensure that the artistic elements of the design properly honored his father's memory while meeting all official military standards. The memorial would include a special section dedicated to Sergeant David Morrison and the other fallen members of Task Force Phoenix. Margaret Foster explained that Maya would be asked to participate in veterans events and educational programs. She would help teach people about the importance of understanding military symbols and the stories behind them. Her experience of accidentally wearing classified insignia would become a powerful example of how respect and education could turn mistakes into opportunities for learning and remembrance. Maya felt overwhelmed by the generosity and creativity of the solution. Instead of being punished for her innocent mistake, she was being invited to become part of something meaningful and lasting. "I would be honored to participate," she said, "but I want to make sure I do this right. I want to learn everything I can about Task Force Phoenix and about military history, so I can represent this memorial properly." Colonel Wright smiled and said, "Miss Chen, your willingness to learn and your respect for military service are exactly why we believe you are the right person for this project. You will have access to historians and veterans who can teach you about the unit's history and help you understand the significance of what you will be representing." Over the next several months, Maya threw herself into learning about Task Force, Phoenix, and military history. She read books, interviewed veterans, and visited military museums. She learned about the dangerous missions the unit had conducted and the sacrifices made by soldiers like Jake's father. The more she learned, the more honored she felt to carry their symbols. The memorial dedication ceremony took place on a beautiful spring day in Washington, D.C. Maya stood with Jake, General Martinez, and the surviving Task Force Phoenix veterans as they unveiled the bronze plaque that bore the symbols Maya had worn unknowingly for years. Her tattoo had been slightly modified by a military tattoo artist to include additional elements that officially designated it as part of the memorial project. During the ceremony, Maya spoke about her journey from getting a decorative tattoo to becoming an advocate for military history education. She talked about Jake's love for his father and the importance of finding appropriate ways to honor military service. Many people in the audience were moved by her story and by the example of how understanding and cooperation could resolve even complex problems. After the ceremony, Jake approached Maya with tears in his eyes. "Thank you," he said simply. "You helped me find a way to honor my father that I never could have imagined. This memorial means everything to me and to the other families." Maya looked at the bronze plaque gleaming in the sunlight and felt a deep sense of purpose and connection. What had started as a young art student's desire for a beautiful tattoo had become something much more meaningful. She had learned that sometimes the most important art carries stories and responsibilities we never expected, and that understanding those stories can transform their meaning entirely. As Maya walked through the memorial park, she thought about how much her life had changed since that evening when she first walked into Jake's tattoo shop. She had gained not just a tattoo, but a connection to military history, a relationship with veterans and their families, and a sense of responsibility to honor the service and sacrifice of people she had never met, but now deeply respected. Their symbols on her back were no longer just decoration. They were a living memorial to Sergeant David Morrison and all the members of Task Force Phoenix, a reminder that every piece of art tells a story, and that sometimes the most beautiful stories are about love, sacrifice, and the connections between people across time and circumstances.